Hi, and this is the third part for the series, I guess, on writing formal lab reports. We're going to talk about the method and materials and results in this video. So we've already done the title, abstract, and introduction, and we talked about proper referencing within the introduction video. So if you need to reference that, you can go and watch that one. So we're going to talk about the method and results, and let's start off with the method and materials. So I had and materials in brackets because the materials aren't really its own section. The materials are just included within your method, and you wouldn't ever just have a list of the glassware or solutions that you were using. So in the method and materials section, you're going to create a clear, concise narrative. If someone were reading this, they should read it and be able to duplicate the experiment that you did exactly. If you used a beaker, state the size of beaker. If whatever you use to transfer solution, state exactly what you're being used so that someone who is reading it can replicate your experiment. The narrative should be in past tense like all components of the lab, contain no personal pronouns, maintain that formal voice. Don't use slang, don't refer to different steps that may have been on the lab sheet given to you in class. You are just writing a narrative, so a paragraph or two, about what you did. The written narrative, again, past tense, a detailed logical procedure that can be replicated. State your materials that are used within the narrative. State the sizes, dimensions, quantities, whatever may be appropriate. If you're using a diagram, label it, and we're going to talk at the end of this video about how to properly label different figures and tables that you may see in a formal lab report. Your control variable should be identified within the narrative. This does not mean you need a sentence saying the control variable was this, but if you are purposefully controlling temperature, state that. And there should also be a description of what data gathering analysis methods are used. So if you're doing a certain part of an experiment and you are recording that data, how are you measuring? We can use temperature again. What device are you using to measure the temperature, and how are you recording that? Which leads to the results section, because you're going to represent all the results that you recorded from the lab in an organized manner. It's very straightforward. The calculations that may be required for different labs can be put in your results. But in the section, note there is no interpretation or discussion. So if you gathered a mass from a precipitate in a lab, you would just put that mass down as a result. If you're making interpretations about that mass, that would go in the next discussion section. Tables and figures will often appear in the results because they're a good way of organizing quantitative and qualitative data. So tables are numbered and titled at the top, and you need a descriptive title. State what is in that table. Figures, which could be graphs, diagrams, or formulas, should be properly formatted to have the number at the bottom and another descriptive title. Those numbers should always be in chronological order. So if you had a figure in your introduction or your method, in your results you would start, say you had a figure in your introduction and your method. In the results you could say figure 3 and then a descriptive title. If you have a sample calculation, you would say figure 4, calculation of data, but you would only need to do the calculation in full once. So say you were gathering data from 10 different trials, but the calculation with that data would be exactly the same for all 10 trials. You would just write out the calculation done once, and then you can say this calculation as shown in figure 4 was done for all the data gathered and listed in table 5. In summary, the method is a narrative describing how the lab was performed. The materials are listed within that narrative. The results have observations and data that are properly formatted into tables and figures, as well as any calculations are made, but no interpretations are done in that section. Here are some examples of table and figure. You can see in this first one, table 1.5, and then a descriptive title. It's at the top, and then you have your table below. Here's an example, figure 1, solubility curves for several ionic solids, a nice descriptive title, and it's below the graph. All your tables and figures should appear this way, and you'll find that they appear this way in textbooks and other scientific references as well.